Sunlight streamed down on a mild afternoon as Nora walked hand-in-hand with her 8-year-old grandson, Ethan, toward the local market. Although her clothes were modest and visibly worn from countless washes, she took care to keep them spotless and well-ironed. Meanwhile, Ethan stared wide-eyed at every aisle, fascinated by the tall shelves stacked with goods he seldom got to see at home. For Nora, each market trip had become an exercise in cautious planning. She lived on a small pension that left little room for luxuries. Yet, despite the financial struggles, she did her best to shield Ethan from the gloom of their circumstances. As she guided him through the aisles, she'd stop occasionally to compare prices or check for sales, ensuring each item was absolutely necessary before placing it in the cart. Their current list was short: rice, milk, and bread, essentials that wouldn't strain her budget too severely. She made a mental calculation of how many coins she had in her small purse, praying the total would suffice. Though she hid it well, the weight of these concerns pressed on her shoulders. Ethan, however, was blissfully caught up in the colorful world around him. As they passed a section filled with brightly wrapped snacks, his eyes lit up when he saw a familiar blue box of chocolate cookies. "Grandma, can we get these?" he asked, excitement radiating from his voice. Nora paused. The brand was the same type her late daughter, Ethan's mother, used to buy him. The memory tugged at her heart. It had been 2 years since Nora lost her daughter in a tragic accident, an event that had turned her life upside down. She had barely found time to grieve, dedicating every ounce of herself to caring for Ethan. If there was a chance to bring a little joy to his day, especially if it reminded him of his mother, she felt compelled to seize it. "Yes, of course," Nora replied quietly, forcing a smile as she placed the cookies into the cart. A pang of worry followed. She wasn't entirely sure she had enough coins to cover the extra cost. Still, the sight of Ethan hugging the cookie box made her decision feel worthwhile. As they approached the checkout, Nora's anxiety heightened. She mentally recounted the coins in her pouch, hoping they wouldn't come up short. She took a deep breath and stepped into line behind a few other customers, double-checking her items: the bag of rice, the carton of milk, the loaf of bread, and those cookies that meant the world to Ethan. Finally, they reached the front. Nora lifted her items onto the conveyor belt, her hands trembling slightly. Ethan stood close by, clutching the cookies, a hopeful smile dancing across his face. On the other side of the counter stood Ronnie, the market's cashier, who wore a tired expression. It was a busy day, and the line behind them was starting to grow. As Ronnie began scanning the items, Nora carefully opened her purse and pulled out a small pouch filled with coins. She had tried her best to accumulate enough loose change, but seeing how many coins she'd need to count out in public made her uneasy. She worried about drawing attention or causing inconvenience to those behind her. Ronnie scanned the last item and announced the total with a hint of impatience. Nora swallowed hard. She started counting the coins, her fingers shaking from the pressure. She knew this might take a moment, but she had no other means to pay. A few people in line glanced at their phones or shifted foot to foot, showing mild restlessness. Nora tried to speed up, but the more she rushed, the more she fumbled. She could feel the atmosphere tightening, though she kept her focus on the coins, determined to maintain her composure for Ethan's sake. Then it happened. Ronnie let out an audible sigh and fixed Nora with a pointed look. "Really, ma'am? You decide to pay with a bag of coins at this time of day?" His tone wasn't overtly loud, but it carried enough scorn to make Nora's cheeks burn. Ethan looked up, sensing the tension, but he didn't fully understand what was happening. Nora's heart sank. She clenched her jaw, resisting the urge to snap back. This wasn't the first time she'd felt judged for her limited means, but it was the first time it happened so blatantly in front of Ethan. She whispered an apology and tried to count more quickly, each coin clinking on the counter like a small reminder of her financial predicament. Behind them, the line grew, and the tension deepened. More customers began craning their necks, curious about the holdup. In the midst of it all, neither Nora nor Ronnie noticed the tall man standing behind them in line, a man wearing a black jacket, observing the entire exchange with a steady, serious gaze. Ethan tugged on Nora's sleeve. "It's okay, Grandma," he whispered, sensing her embarrassment. Nora mustered a small, grateful smile but couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. She just wanted this to be over. Little did she know, the situation was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would alter her day more profoundly than she ever imagined. Nora continued counting coins as Ronnie tapped his fingers on the counter, his impatience escalating. "Come on, ma'am," he muttered loudly enough for the surrounding customers to hear. "Some of us have a schedule to keep. Can't you count faster?" Her cheeks burned even hotter. She kept her eyes locked on the pile of coins, determined to get through this. She was fully aware that she was holding up the line, but there was no other way for her to pay. A few murmurs rose from the people behind her, some sympathetic, others simply annoyed. Ethan held the box of cookies tighter, as if afraid someone might snatch them away. "Look," Ronnie continued, casting a glance at the line. "If you don't have enough money, just put some items back. This isn't a charity." His tone was cold, betraying no understanding of what Nora might be going through. Suddenly, Ethan spoke up in a timid voice. "Grandma, maybe we don't need the cookies. It's okay." The heartbreak was evident in his eyes, but he was trying to protect Nora from further humiliation. Nora paused, feeling tears threaten to well up. She glanced at the cookies, recalling how they'd once been such a simple joy in Ethan's life and a memory of the mother he'd lost too soon. Before she could reply, Ronnie grabbed the cookie box off the counter and tossed it aside. "There. One less item to worry about," he said, rolling his eyes. "That'll help." He turned to address the next customer in line, ignoring the fact that Nora was still trying to finalize payment for the other items. A hush fell over the line. Some customers averted their eyes, uncomfortable with the blatant humiliation. Others murmured in agreement with Ronnie, wanting to move on. Nora felt as if she were shrinking, each second making her more aware of how little she had. She kept thinking, if only I had a debit card or enough bills, none of this would be happening. Amid this tense silence, the tall man behind them stepped forward. He wore a simple black jacket and dark sunglasses, giving him a somewhat incognito appearance. Without a word, he reached out and placed a few bills on the counter in front of Ronnie. Then, in a calm yet firm tone, he said, "She's not done with her purchase. Ring up the cookies too." Ronnie glanced at the money, then at the man's face. "And who do you think you are?" he asked, clearly taken aback by the stranger's intervention. A couple of customers recognized the man's voice or profile and gasped quietly, but Ronnie seemed oblivious. He raised an eyebrow, waiting for an explanation. The man slowly removed his sunglasses, revealing a piercing gaze that seemed to root Ronnie to the spot. "I'm someone who won't tolerate seeing a grandmother humiliated," he said, his voice resonating with quiet authority. Then he added, "And my name is Keanu Reeves." A ripple of recognition spread through the line. Some people grabbed their phones, whispering excitedly, "It's him. It's really Keanu Reeves." Others simply stood in awe, not sure how to react. Ronnie's face paled. He stammered, "Keanu Reeves? I didn't realize." Keanu turned to Nora, offering a gentle smile. "May I cover the cost of the cookies and anything else you need?" Nora's eyes widened in shock and gratitude, but she managed to shake her head, speechless for a moment. I couldn't possibly accept that," she whispered, her voice quivering. Ethan gazed at Keanu with pure wonder, as if he were a superhero come to life. Keanu nodded slowly, acknowledging her discomfort. "I understand," he said, "but let me at least help you complete this purchase. Ethan deserves those cookies." The mention of Ethan's name was gentle yet resolute. Nora's defenses melted under the compassion in Keanu's eyes. She wiped at the corner of her eye, trying to hold back tears. Meanwhile, Ronnie looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. The once smug cashier was now reduced to silence, confronted with not only a world-famous actor, but also his own actions laid bare. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "Sir, I didn't realize the situation. I was just trying to keep the line moving." Keanu's expression remained calm, but there was an unmistakable firmness in his gaze. "You don't have to realize someone's situation to treat them with respect," he said. "Kindness doesn't cost anything." but it can change everything. Nora, her voice trembling, finally said, "Thank you so much. I don't know how to repay you." Keanu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to repay me," he said. "Just keep loving and caring for Ethan as you've been doing. That's enough." The line of customers watched, many of them now smiling or wiping away tears. A middle-aged woman standing a few spots back called out, "You're an angel, Keanu." Another man simply nodded in admiration, while someone else clapped softly in appreciation. Ethan tugged at Nora's sleeve and then glanced at Keanu. "Mister," he said in a small voice, "thank you so much. Mom always got me these cookies before she, went away." His innocent eyes brimmed with gratitude. Keanu knelt down slightly to meet Ethan's gaze. "Your mom would be proud of you, buddy," he said, gently patting Ethan's shoulder. "You're helping your grandma in every way you can, just by being such a good kid." Ronnie, by now, was scanning the remaining items silently, trying to hurry the process along without further embarrassing himself. Keanu handed over a few more bills to cover the groceries, including the cookies. Nora didn't protest this time. The unexpected kindness felt as though it had lifted a massive weight from her. She simply squeezed Ethan's hand and held back tears. When the transaction finished, Keanu helped place the groceries into a couple of bags. Then he turned to the stunned customers who remained in line. "Thanks for your patience, everyone," he said politely. "Let's all try to remember we never know what someone is going through." That single statement carried the weight of a lesson that would linger in the store long after he left. In the aftermath of that unforgettable moment, the entire store seemed to move in slow motion. Customers remained in line, many looking at their phones, texting or posting about what they just witnessed. Others simply stared, still processing that they had seen a Hollywood star intervene so compassionately. Even the store's overhead music, usually unremarkable, felt strangely poignant in the hushed atmosphere. Nora and Ethan stood at the end of the checkout lane, groceries now paid for. Nora gently placed the cookie box into one of the bags, her mind still reeling from how the day had taken such a turn. Ethan clung to her side, clutching a small candy bar Keanu had quietly tossed in with the groceries, an extra little surprise he insisted on. Ronnie hovered behind the counter, looking visibly unsettled. Gone was the earlier sneer or impatience. Instead, he appeared to wrestle with guilt. He opened his mouth as though to speak, then quickly shut it again, unsure of what to say or how to fix the damage. Keanu Reeves stepped closer to Nora and Ethan, giving them a warm, reassuring nod. "Is there anything else you need before you go?" he asked softly, voice carrying genuine concern. Nora shook her head. "You've already done more than I can ever repay," she murmured. Her voice was shaky, but she managed a grateful smile. "Thank you for everything." Ethan, his eyes shining, added, "Yeah, thank you," in a tone that danced between excitement and disbelief. Keanu smiled at the boy. "Take care of your grandma, okay, Ethan? She's a special lady." Ethan nodded eagerly, and for a moment, the heaviness of the morning lifted, replaced by a sense of shared warmth that softened the edges of the store's sterile surroundings. With the groceries bagged, Nora was about to guide Ethan toward the exit when a voice called out, "Wait." It was Ronnie, his tone subdued. He stepped out from behind the counter, carefully placing the next customer's groceries to one side. Approaching them, he cleared his throat. I want to apologize," he began, his expression filled with regret. "I shouldn't have spoken to you that way." Nora hesitated, clutching the bags. Part of her wanted to walk away, but she also sensed sincerity in Ronnie's voice. She looked at Ethan, who seemed uncertain but curious. Finally, Nora nodded, inviting Ronnie to continue. He swallowed hard. "I was having a rough day, but that's no excuse," he said, glancing at Keanu, then returning his gaze to Nora. "I got no right to make you feel less than anyone else. I'm sorry. Truly." Nora exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Thank you," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I appreciate you saying that. I understand that sometimes life isn't easy for any of us, but we all deserve kindness." A few customers watched the exchange, some quietly applauding the unexpected moment of reconciliation. Ronnie stepped back, nodding, before resuming his place at the register. He still appeared visibly humbled. Keanu placed a hand on Ronnie's shoulder. "Treat people well," he said softly. "That's what we're here to do." With that, Nora and Ethan made their way toward the automatic doors. Keanu walked alongside them, intent on seeing them out. Outside, the air felt cooler, and Nora inhaled deeply, almost as if she were purging the remnants of tension from the store. Ethan clung to her arm, occasionally glancing up at Keanu, as though not fully convinced this was real life. Nora turned to Keanu one more time. "Mr. Reeves, I have no words," she said, shaking her head in awe. "I was humiliated in there, but you turned it around into something I don't even know how to explain." Her voice cracked slightly with emotion. Keanu gently waved off her gratitude. "Call me Keanu, please," he insisted. "I just did what anyone should do, though maybe not everyone can. Sometimes you have to be in the right place at the right time." He paused, looking down at Ethan. "You take good care of each other, okay?" Ethan nodded vigorously, gripping the bag with the cookies as if it were treasure. "We will," he promised, giving Keanu the biggest smile he could muster. Keanu returned the smile, then glanced around as a few passers-by began to recognize him. "I might slip away before the entire neighborhood shows up," he said, half-jokingly. "But if you ever need anything, keep an eye out for me." Nora blinked in surprise. Are you here often?" Keanu shrugged. "I live in the area sometimes, between projects. You never know where life will take you." He offered a small wave, and then ambled toward a nondescript black car parked a short distance away. For a moment, Nora and Ethan stood on the sidewalk, watching him leave. A gentle breeze rustled their hair. Then, with the groceries in tow, they began the journey home. Ethan peered into the bag, fascinated by the cookie box that only minutes before he thought he'd lose. "Grandma," he said softly, "Mom would be so happy we got these, right?" Nora's eyes welled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude and relief. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, she would." The rest of the walk home felt lighter, as though a massive burden had lifted from their shoulders. Nora couldn't stop replaying Keanu's words in her mind, along with the empathetic gestures of those few strangers who had also shown them compassion. It was a day that began with tension and shame, but ended with a renewed sense of hope. Little did she know, however, that this single encounter would have ripple effects far beyond the confines of that market. Kindness, after all, has a way of multiplying, and Nora would soon discover just how far-reaching one's selfless act can be. The afternoon sun had shifted to a warmer hue by the time Nora and Ethan arrived at their small apartment. It was modest but clean, a testament to Nora's relentless dedication to keeping a safe, welcoming home for her grandson. She set the grocery bags on the tiny kitchen table, still in a daze from what had unfolded at the store. Ethan was all smiles as he placed the cookie box on the counter. "I can't believe Keanu Reeves was right behind us, Grandma," he exclaimed, bouncing on his toes with excitement. "He was so nice. And he even got me this candy bar." Nora sighed, trying to process the surreal nature of it all. "I know, sweetheart. It still feels like a dream." Her tone softened, but it wasn't just about who he is. It was about how he cared enough to step in. She ruffled Ethan's hair gently. "Don't ever forget that." They put away the groceries together, Nora constantly glancing at the few extra items Keanu had insisted on paying for: fresh fruit, an extra carton of milk, and a couple more essentials. Every time her eyes landed on them, she felt a swell of gratitude. Meanwhile, across town, the grocery store was abuzz with talk of what had happened that morning. Customers who witnessed the event were sharing the story online. Some had taken quick, discreet videos, posting them to social media with captions like, "Keanu Reeves defends grandma at local market," and "Kindness in action. You won't believe this moment." The story spread rapidly, capturing the attention of people near and far. Within hours, clips of Keanu's intervention went viral. A local news outlet picked it up, running a brief segment titled, "Celebrity Shocks Shoppers with Generosity." The piece included interviews with a couple of bystanders who spoke of the emotional impact they felt witnessing the scene. One woman declared through teary eyes, "It reminded me that you never really know who's behind you in line, both literally and figuratively. A little kindness can go a long way." Back in the store, Ronnie was called into the manager's office. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Layla, sat him down, her expression stern yet empathetic. "Ronnie, do you have any idea how much negative publicity we might get from this?" she asked, folding her hands on the desk. Ronnie hung his head, recalling the humiliating confrontation. He mumbled an apology, but Layla pressed on. "We're supposed to represent good customer service, especially for older folks or anyone who might need extra time. What you did was the opposite." Ronnie swallowed hard. "I know, I messed up. It was a rough day, and I took it out on that lady. I feel horrible about it." Layla studied him for a moment. "We're going to mandate a customer care workshop for all employees," she decided. "But I want you at the forefront, sharing what you've learned about respect." Ronnie nodded, relieved he wasn't losing his job, but also aware he had a lot to make amends for. Layla then handed him a slip of paper. "Word is, the older woman's name is Nora, and she lives in our community. If you can find a way to reach out and apologize personally, I think that could help both of you move forward." Ronnie nodded again, feeling a flicker of hope that he might be able to right his wrong. Meanwhile, in that small apartment, Nora finished up the housework and sat down with Ethan for a simple dinner. Rice, some vegetables, and milk. "Hey, Grandma," Ethan said, dipping a spoon into his bowl. "Do you think we'll see Keanu again?" Nora gave a gentle laugh. "I'm not sure, dear. He's probably quite busy. But who knows?" She paused, reflecting on the day's events. "I just hope we can one day pay forward what he did for us." Ethan tilted his head. "What does that mean?" he asked between bites. Nora considered her words carefully. "Well, when someone does something kind for us, sometimes the best way to show gratitude is to do something kind for someone else in return. Like a chain of kindness." Ethan's eyes lit up. "That's cool. Maybe I can help one of the kids at school if they forget their lunch or something." Nora smiled, proud of the boy's quick understanding. "Exactly," she said, ruffling his hair again. "We all can be the reason someone smiles." While they finished their meal, a soft knock echoed from the apartment door. Nora's heart skipped. She rarely got visitors, especially unannounced. She signaled for Ethan to wait, then opened the door cautiously. To her astonishment, it was Ronnie, the cashier from the market. He stood there, head bowed, holding a small bouquet of flowers. Surprised, Nora stepped outside, closing the door slightly so Ethan couldn't overhear everything. Ronnie fumbled with the bouquet, eventually offering it to her. I hope you can forgive me," he said, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I acted like a jerk. I can't change what happened, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry." Nora looked down at the flowers, then back at Ronnie's remorseful face. It was clear he'd mustered a lot of courage to show up. She took the bouquet with a gentle sigh, though her tone remained firm. "That day was humiliating," she began, "but I appreciate you coming here. That takes courage, too." Ronnie nodded, relieved she hadn't sent him away. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I'm attending a workshop soon for better customer relations, but if there's anything else I can do to make things right, please let me know." Nora's gaze softened. "Just remember we're all humans first. Beyond that, your apology is enough." "Thank you." She offered him a small but genuine smile before retreating into her home. Standing behind the door, bouquet in hand, she felt an odd mixture of relief and closure. Ethan peeked up at her, curiosity dancing in his eyes. "Who was that, Grandma?" Nora placed the flowers in a vase on the kitchen counter. "Someone who learned a lesson," she replied. "And I think today we learned one too. That kindness can show up in the most unexpected ways." Days turned into weeks, and Nora's encounter with Keanu Reeves remained fresh in her mind. Each time she opened the cupboard and saw the extra groceries he'd insisted on buying, she felt a renewed sense of gratitude. The memory had also sparked a beautiful shift in her outlook. Instead of feeling weighed down by financial woes, she found herself focusing on smaller moments of happiness: a meal shared with Ethan, a cool breeze on a hot day, a stranger's smile on the street. Ethan seemed especially motivated to spread kindness wherever he went. He told Nora about small acts he performed at school, helping a younger student tie their shoelaces, offering part of his lunch to a classmate who forgot theirs, or simply sharing an encouraging word. Nora watched him with pride, realizing how a single gesture of generosity could influence a child's heart so profoundly. Meanwhile, Ronnie's personal transformation was evident at the market. Word spread that he had become notably more patient and polite with customers. He greeted everyone with a smile, offered help whenever needed, and even assisted an older gentleman who was struggling to carry his groceries. The store manager, Layla, applauded his efforts, citing him as an example of personal growth and renewed empathy. One morning, Nora and Ethan returned to the market for their usual groceries. They felt some trepidation about bumping into Ronnie, but upon seeing him, they were pleasantly surprised by the warmth in his greeting. He rushed from behind the register to help them bag their items. "It's good to see you, Nora. How have you and Ethan been?" he asked, genuinely curious. Nora smiled back, feeling no trace of the old resentment. "We've been well, thank you. And you?" Ronnie nodded, glancing at Ethan. "Trying to do better each day. Thanks for giving me that chance." He handed Ethan a small piece of candy from behind the counter, a simple but heartfelt gesture of goodwill. The boy's grin was enough to assure them that forgiveness was the right path. That afternoon, Nora returned home to find an envelope in her mailbox with no return address. Inside was a typed note that read, "You and Ethan deserve the best life has to offer. I've arranged something I believe will help." It was signed with a simple KR. Alongside the note was a card for a local youth program that offered academic support, extracurricular activities, and even scholarship opportunities for children in need. Nora's eyes widened. Keanu Reeves had once again shown his quiet generosity, this time creating a pathway for Ethan's future. She couldn't hold back tears as she reread the note, her heart brimming with admiration. Setting the card gently on the coffee table, she vowed to call the program's number the very next day. She wanted to see if it was truly as extraordinary as it sounded. A week later, Nora and Ethan found themselves at the youth program's headquarters, a modern facility buzzing with children learning music, sports, and various arts. A friendly staff member guided them through the possibilities for Ethan, tutoring in math and reading, group sports teams, and even a small theater group. Ethan's face practically glowed with excitement. "Grandma, this is amazing," he exclaimed, running between colorful posters advertising upcoming events. After their tour, the program coordinator informed Nora that all expenses would be covered by a benefactor who wished to remain anonymous. Nora needed no hints to guess who that benefactor might be. She murmured her thanks, feeling an unbreakable sense of hope for Ethan's future. News of these developments soon spread around the community, amplified by the viral story of the market incident. Local residents reached out to Nora, some offering to donate clothes or school supplies for Ethan, others simply sending warm wishes and notes of encouragement. Though she'd always considered herself independent, Nora came to understand that allowing others to help wasn't a sign of weakness. Rather, it was a testament to our shared humanity. One evening, while cooking dinner, she heard a familiar voice on her answering machine. She played it back, hands covered in flour from preparing dough. "Hi, Nora, it's Keanu," the message began. "I hope you and Ethan are doing well. I just wanted to check in and see if you needed anything else. Take care, and keep smiling." Tears welled up for a moment, but they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. She called Ethan over to listen. He grinned ear to ear, hugging Nora around the waist. In that quiet, modest kitchen, Nora realized the magnitude of what had occurred over the past few weeks. She had witnessed both cruelty and profound kindness, all in the span of a single market visit. The grandmother who once felt invisible had not only been seen, but genuinely cared for. And in turn, she saw how that care could ignite a chain reaction, impacting the cashier, the local manager, her grandson, and the entire community that rallied around a small yet life-changing act of compassion. Nora's life changed forever on a day that began with embarrassment at a checkout counter. By choosing kindness, Keanu Reeves turned a moment of public humiliation into an opportunity for deeper human connection. His gesture wasn't merely about buying groceries. It was about restoring dignity to a grandmother struggling to make ends meet and renewing hope in a young boy's life. The ripple effect of that single act of compassion spread far and wide. Ronnie, the cashier, came to understand that empathy should not depend on someone's appearance or financial standing. Other shoppers took the story to social media, igniting a wave of positive messages that inspired people to reflect on their own behavior. And for Nora and Ethan, the difference went beyond a bag of cookies or a few essentials. It became a catalyst for better opportunities, new friendships, and a reminder that they were not alone. Kindness, as Nora learned, is not limited by one's wealth or fame. It's a choice that each of us can make every single day, whether we're celebrities or regular people trying to get by. Sometimes, a small gesture of help can mean the world to someone else, revealing the power we all have to change a difficult situation into a miracle of compassion. When we show empathy, we acknowledge the humanity in one another. Nora's journey shows that, no matter how hopeless things might seem, a single moment of goodwill can spark an entire chain of uplifting events. In a world often overshadowed by negativity, such stories remind us that we can be agents of goodness. All it takes is the willingness to open our eyes, reach out a hand, and make a difference, even if it starts with something as simple as a cookie in a checkout line.